They labeled him worthless until the truth was revealed. They called him worthless long before he ever understood what the word truly meant. In the quiet frontier town of Hollow Creek, words had weight. They lingered in the dust, clung to wooden walls, and followed a man like a shadow he could never outrun. And for Elijah Mercer, that shadow had a name: failure. It was whispered when he passed a saloon, murmured at the trading post, spoken openly when people thought he could not hear. Poor Elijah! Can't hold land, can't hold his head high either. Elijah heard every word. He just never answered. A man with nothing to show. Elijah Mercer was not born broken. Once, he had dreams like any young man raised under an open sky. He believed in honest work, in keeping promises, in the quiet dignity of doing what was right even when no one was watching. But dreams were fragile things on the frontier. His father had died when Elijah was barely 20, leaving behind a stretch of land so barren it mocked the word farm. The soil cracked in summer and froze like iron in winter. Every crop Elijah planted withered before it could reach his knees. Neighbors shook their heads and said it was cursed. Others said Elijah simply didn't have what it took. When the debts piled up, he sold the land for almost nothing. Some laughed at the price he accepted. Others laughed at him for trying so long in the first place. From that day on, Elijah was no longer young Mercer with promise. He became the man who failed. He took work wherever he could, mending fences, shoveling stables, hauling water before dawn. He slept in a narrow room behind the blacksmith shop and ate meals that barely filled his stomach. Still, he never complained. Not once. The town's judgment. Hollow Creek was small, but it knew how to judge. Men who owned land were respected. Men who lost it were pitted. Men who lost everything were invisible. Elijah existed somewhere between pity and scorn. You see that one, people would say. Good heart, but no spine. Some called him lazy. Others called him unlucky. A few were cruel enough to call him weak. What none of them knew was how many nights Elijah lay awake replaying every choice he'd ever made, wondering where it all went wrong. Or how many mornings he rose before the sun, forcing himself to believe that today, just maybe, would be different. The woman who noticed. Her name was Clara Whitfield. She arrived in Hollow Creek quietly, with a single trunk and eyes that held both caution and kindness. She had come to live with her aunt after losing her parents to illness back east. No grand story followed her, no mystery, no scandal, just grief. Clara noticed Elijah the way others did not. She noticed how he held doors open even when people walked past him without thanks. How he spoke gently to horses no one else wanted to ride. How he never raised his voice, even when mocked. The first time their paths crossed, Elijah was repairing a broken fence near the edge of town. Clara stopped, unsure whether to speak. "You don't have to fix all of that yourself," she said softly. Elijah looked up, surprised. "Someone has to." She smiled, not out of pity, but recognition. From that day on, Clara began greeting him whenever she saw him. Sometimes with a smile, sometimes with a simple nod, sometimes with questions about the weather or the horses or the land beyond the hills. It was more kindness than Elijah had received in years. Rumors and warnings. People noticed. They always did. Clara's aunt warned her gently. "That man has nothing to offer you, child." Others were less gentle. "He'll only drag you down," they said. "He's failed at everything he's touched. Find someone with land or at least a future." Clara listened, but she did not obey. She saw something no one else seemed willing to see. A quiet strength that did not demand attention. A man who carried his failures without letting them harden his heart. Still, even Clara could not silence the town entirely. The whispers grew louder, and Elijah heard them too, walking away before being left. One evening, Elijah made a decision he believed was merciful. He found Clara near the creek, where the water reflected the last light of the day. She smiled when she saw him, but the smile faded when she noticed his expression. "I can't see you anymore," he said. The words hurt him as much as they stunned her. "Why?" she asked. "Because people are right," Elijah replied. I don't have a future. I barely have a present. And you deserve more than a man the town has already given up on. Clara shook her head. I didn't choose you because of what you own. Elijah looked away. That doesn't change what I am. For the first time, Clara saw the depth of the wound he carried. She wanted to argue, to fight, to convince him. But some battles could not be won with words. She left that evening with tears in her eyes. And Hollow Creek nodded in approval. The breaking point. Winter came early that year. Work became scarce. The cold gnawed at Elijah's bones and his hope alike. Some nights he skipped meals so he could afford firewood. One stormy evening, the blacksmith found him collapsed in the snow behind the shop. Fever had taken hold. For days, Elijah drifted in and out of consciousness. No family sat by his bed. No friends waited for him to wake. Only Clara came. She brought soup, changed the cloth on his forehead, sat in silence when words failed. Why are you here? Elijah whispered when he finally opened his eyes. Because you matter, she answered simply. Those words stayed with him long after the fever broke. The job no one wanted. Spring brought opportunity, but not the kind most men wanted. An old silver mine, abandoned years ago, needed clearing so the land could be sold. It was dangerous work. Collapsed tunnels. Poor air. No guarantee of pay if nothing valuable was found. Most men refused. Elijah accepted. Of course he did, the town said. Worthless men take worthless jobs. Every day, Elijah descended into the darkness, lantern trembling in his hand. He worked slowly, carefully, clearing debris and reinforcing weak supports. He noticed things others might have missed, old markings, hidden shafts, signs of deeper tunnels left unexplored. Weeks passed. Then one morning, the earth gave way. The mine collapsed behind him, trapping Elijah deep underground, the silence underground. For hours, Elijah lay trapped, his leg pinned beneath fallen rock. His lantern flickered, then dimmed. He thought of his father, of Clara, of the life he never managed to build. And in that darkness, stripped of every label the town had placed on him, Elijah understood something profound. He had never been worthless. He had simply been unseen. Using tools still within reach, Elijah freed himself inch by painful inch. Crawling through a narrow shaft he remembered from days before, he followed the faintest draft of air. When he emerged, dirty, injured, alive, it was into a cavern no one had ever recorded. Silver veins ran through the stone like lightning frozen in place. Rich, untouched, abundant, the truth comes to light. Word spread faster than fire through dry grass. The worthless man had uncovered the largest silver deposit Hollow Creek had ever known. Investors arrived. Officials took notes. The mine was purchased for a sum that changed Elijah's life overnight. Those who once ignored him now greeted him by name. Those who mocked him now praised his perseverance. Those who called him nothing now called him lucky. Elijah listened and said nothing, choosing what matters. With his earnings, Elijah paid every debt he owed. He bought land, not the barren plot as past, but fertile ground near the creek. He rebuilt the old blacksmith shop, turning it into housing for workers who had nowhere else to go. He hired men others would not, widows' sons, injured laborers, outcasts. When asked why, he answered simply, everyone deserves a chance. And then he went to Clara. She was standing in the same place by the creek when he found her, sunlight dancing on the water. I was wrong, Elijah said, not about the town, but about myself. Clara studied him, then smiled. I knew you'd find your way. I didn't find it alone, he replied. The final lesson. Hollow Creek changed after that. Not all at once, not completely, but slowly. The town learned a lesson it had long forgotten. Worth is not measured by land owned or success seen. Strength is not always loud, and the quietest souls often carry the deepest courage. As for Elijah Mercer, he never corrected those who once labeled him worthless, because the truth no longer needed defending. It had already been revealed.